Hello, everyone. I went through the first discourse, which was the structure of unity as part of the Galactic discourse, in which there are 13 universal laws. And at the central point of that, there is the structure of unity, which, as I discussed in a previous video, everything has an interconnection. And there's this structure of life where everything is interconnected. So in this discourse, which is the second one, I would like to go through the structure of duality and what does it mean and how does it affect our relationship with our own self. Because what you see outside is actually a representation of what you're experiencing right now inside yourself. So whatever we are experiencing in the outer world, we are also experiencing in the inner world. And just to give you a bit of a tangible understanding of what does it mean is that, for example, a lot of times you get this gut feeling. Okay, so you have this gut feeling that you feel within your body, and then there is the mind. So when you look at even the mind and the heart, there is kind of a polarity between the two, where your mind tells you logically what needs to be done, and your emotion and your heart and your emotional body will basically tells you something else. And there's this battle going on within ourselves that what should we do? What is the right thing to do? And there's this constant battle for the people, that are having the heart connection with the source and also have the mind. There are beings in the universe that are only have the mind, so they don't have the emotional body. And there are beings in the universe that are basically gone past the fourth and fifth dimension, in which they are fully in their heart space. With the human, with us and humans, basically we have this dichotomy or this duality, in which we have the mind, which is like a binary computer, and we have the heart, which is like a super consciousness computer. And unless we embrace both of these sides within ourselves, we cannot come back into our full circle, because you got to embrace both sides of yourself. If you say, okay, I don't want to listen to my mind and I don't want to listen to my heart, or we go back and forth, we want to listen to both, and sometimes we don't even listen to any of them, we go into this kind of a very confused state. And a lot of what we are experiencing right now is the experience of these two dual energetic forms. Like when you look at the structure, when you have a circle, which is perfectly uniform in its structure, and it has a central point, which is the central sun within itself. So when you look at the circle, in order for a circle to create experience separation from itself, it has to create a duplicate of itself or a shadow self and create what we call a shape of Vesica Pisces. So if you look in the background, you can see a structure of Vesica Pisces in which you have two circles, and within that circles it becomes a Vesica Pisces, and from that point you get light, or the pure light comes from within. So the pure light of life comes from the central point of Vesica Pisces. Interestingly, it looks like an eye. So when you look at people, nowadays it's even really, people have a hard time looking at each other's eyes, because the eyes are the windows of the light and windows of the soul. And if you look at the shape of the eye, is actually a shape of a Vesica Pisces. There's an opening there. So as above, so below, and as below, so above. So everything is interconnected, and we are having this internal battle within us between the heart and the mind, the logic and the essence of the creation, the shadow self versus the true self. And on this, we go in and actually unite both of that within ourselves. We cannot truly experience that outside ourselves, because whatever we are experiencing internally, we project it to outside, and we collectively experience it, like this duality. So this raising of consciousness and what is happening right now for us is one of the steps of us realizing our true nature is bringing the mind and the heart together as one unified consciousness, understanding what each side has and honoring both sides. Because if we don't honor, or if we don't respect, or if we don't acknowledge that part of us, we are basically ignoring that part of us, and by ignoring, nothing is really going to be solved. So it is important to really look into our own consciousness, what is happening within my own body, within my own, day-to-day things that are happening with me, the things that frustrates me. And there is a lot of things in this world that, when you step outside, when everything, let's say, look at this perfect sphere of consciousness, which it has all beauty, all light, all knowledge, and all knowingness within itself, and it has complete knowingness. And when it creates a shadow self, which is the dual universe, or a dual kind of a structure, which is a Vesica Pisces, you actually create this kind of a opposite kind of, they are the same because they're made of the same thing, but it's 180 degrees frequency shift to be able to experience a duality, a state of duality. And in this universe, everything has a state of duality. So if you look at real life, you have days and nights. We have male and female. We have electricity, which is negative and positive, and we have everything. Everything is dual. So you get happiness, sadness, joy. So there's always these different states, kind of like a sinusoidal wave. It's kind of more of a double wave when you look at it, because when you actually go down, there's a part of you, it gives you a potential. So the more you go down, the more you can go up, and the more you go up, the more you can go down. But at the same time, once you realize both sides of the equation, whether it's up or whether it's down, whether it's light or whether it's darkness, whether it is love or whether it is hate, you realize that they are both made up of the same essence of creation, which is you, and you embrace yourself 360 degrees in all directions, and you realize your divine nature and your divinity, and that connects you to the entire cosmos and to the structures of the universe in full embracement of who you are. And when you're at that state, you basically fully become a realized person. You fully transcend and also intrascend. So because it's not just going above it, kind of ignoring it, because transcending means going above and at the same time ignoring what is happening below. But you got to go actually embrace everything. So it's kind of an embracing transcendence of knowing each side. And we fully have to embrace all 360 degrees of our emotions, the ups, the downs, and we have to basically acknowledge and realize that everything in this universe, including all the good things that has happened so far and all the bad things that happened so far, it has a divine nature, and there is a reason behind it. So instead of even trying to avoid it, because by nature, your essence is made up of true joy, true happiness, and true bliss and knowingness of this oneness. Once you realize the understanding of that truth, that you realize both realities or both extremities of yourself, you realize that you are the unshakable factor in the whole equation. which you are the central point. So if you look at behind me, there's this vesica Pisces. There is all these movements happening around the central point, which is your core, and those outside points, as they rotate and as they move and they interact with each other, they actually basically, you experience different emotions. You go up, you go down, and you go back inward to this infinity symbol. So when you look at that, Vesica Pisces is actually, if you connect the two, it becomes an infinity symbol. So all of us, we go, we are creatures of habits. We have this kind of, we go through lives in loops. It's kind of like infinity loops. And then once you grow, you transcend, you create a new loop, and you go into a different, like you create multiple parallel realities within yourself as you grow and you experience different levels of dimension. And the only time that we actually grow is either when we hit the lowest of the lowest, and then we go, okay, there's no way to go lower than this, and then we actually want to go higher, and we go higher, and also when we reach the highest of the highest, then we can go to the next phase. So you see a lot of people, like a lot of life transformation happens when people experience near-death experiences, because it's kind of it is a bridge between this reality and a higher level of reality, and also it is a kind of a wake-up call to actually get rid of all the noise that is coming toward us. And I'm talking about a lot of noise from media, from news, from religions, from social programming, from the food that we eat, from radio frequencies that are interfering with our consciousness, and from psychotronic technologies that are out there, artificial intelligence, and all of these noise that are out there. So once you see that as part of yourself and you realize that you're actually have a choice, you have a choice to choose what you want to choose in this lifetime from the central core of your being, which is actually united in itself with all creation. Then you have a power to actually make a change in your life and step into your power and really, as I say, put a dent in this reality. You actually can change the things that are happening just by your consciousness and by moving your consciousness. And that shows how much power every one of us has, and how much we have been told that we don't have that power through these programmings. We think we are these really small beings, but a human being has a potential to, with his consciousness, to move mountains, as Christ was saying. And we have a power with our faith and unknowingness and consciousness, change the reality with our consciousness, because your consciousness is the most powerful thing in the universe. And no technology, I don't care what CERN is or what it doesn't matter what technology you bring in. Even the most advanced AI technology cannot compete with human consciousness, but it tries to figure it out. But at the same time, you got to look at the duality, and you got to look at how things relate. Well, welcome, Julian, Tinra, and Alper. Great to have you here. Great to talk to you. It's almost midnight, but it's a good time. Getting almost to Christmas time, where we all have this New Year's resolution of 2018, where things are going to move into, I would say, the battle of dark and light that is happening outside is happening within us right now. We are having this we are experiencing it within ourselves, and unless we resolve this within ourselves, we understand our true nature and embrace both sides, embrace both of your darkness and both of your lightness, and realize your true nature, realize your divinity, and from that point, turn on your internal compass. A lot of time, the way the structures that are outside interfering with their consciousness, whether it's light, whether it is darkness, they have their own agenda, because there's this, when you look at the Vesica Pisces, the structure of the Vesica Pisces, from the central point, it is your divinity. It is the central point where light and soul and your being comes into existence. And from that central point, we create a dual universe based on light and darkness, and it has a high and a low, and we go through emotionally, we go through this high and low, kind of like a sinusoidal. When you look at the half of it, it's kind of like a sinusoidal, but it's actually kind of an infinity symbol. So we go through these loops or repetitive loops, and we are creatures of habit. We do things like what we did yesterday, but eventually we become self-realized, and we actually step into our power, and we become the movers and shakers and the changers of the reality. So whomever is watching this, all of you, once you realize that, you realize your true purpose in this lifetime. And I'm here just to kind of remind you of the power that you have, and to make a conscious decision to step into your divine blueprint, to beyond the duality and within the duality, because you got to work within this reality to change this reality, and realize that all of you have the power to make a change, a shift within yourself. And once a critical mass reaches, they talk about this critical mass as 144,000 people. Once this 144,000 people on the planet reach to that critical mass where they realize their true divinity, they interconnect and they make a shift, and that shift actually causes other people to tap into their unified field of consciousness or unity. Thus, the whole planet actually makes the shift. And once this planet, which is interconnected to other planet, makes a shift, the solar system, the other planetary bodies, the whole universe, and this entire galaxy will make a shift as we go through this change. And basically we go into a really empowered state, where in the past, let's say a few million years ago, we came from a really disempowered state, and now we're going to go back to this, becoming this powerful, almost godlike beings that we truly are. And we can basically change and shift and move the direction of where we are going. So one of the things that this duality does, it does create an ego, or what we call a false identity self, which is at the same time has a reality, because it's kind of like a duality. So you got to bring both sides when you speak of it. That way one side doesn't get offended. So I honor both of them, both the ego and kind of a false ego, where you look at it. So what is ego? When you look at the structure of your body, and John Balo Melchizedek talks about that. He talks about the structure of the mind and the structure of the heart, and they're disconnected. They're not fully connected. As a result, we think we are separate from everybody else, and we are kind of feel lost in this whole big cosmos or this universe. We feel like a tiny ant. And he talks about different meditation where you like put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and you actually connect your heart to your mind, so you can actually experience a more full version of yourself. And even within that structure, because you are trying to do something, you remember, when we try to do something, nothing happens, because we're trying to achieve something. Enlightenment doesn't take years. Enlightenment can be instantaneous, because enlightenment is beyond time, space, and dimension. So if you go through any modalities, if any religion or anything that says, oh, it's going to take you 5 years to do this, and 10 years to become a master, and 15 years to become enlightened, that's kind of is built based on either a positive light reality or a dark reality, which is not the structure of unity. Once you pass that, you go to the structure of unity, which if you read Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the power of now. He's one of the few people that actually experienced that level of consciousness, including some people that reach samadhi and all that. So when you realize that enlightenment and the now moment, actually the past doesn't exist, the future doesn't exist, the only thing that exists is a circular time right now, and you realize that you have the power right now to change anything with your consciousness, then that's basically the realization of enlightenment, or what people call enlightenment, because you realize that you are fully embodying your essence, which is the divine essence that you have. And it's simple, but at the same time it's extremely they have become complicated, because there is so many interferences interfering with our consciousness. So there is a lot of, I would say, pull and push from both sides. You know, when you look at Star Wars is coming out December 15 or 18 or something. So there's this group that they think they belong to light, and there's this group that they think they belong to darkness. They have their own agenda and they fight with each other. And if you look at human history, like look at the wars and all that, one side is liberal, one side is control freak, and there's this war between the two. And they are actually, when you look at both of them, they are, as part of that grand journey that we are having, they are going through different cycles of evolution, or what we call revolution, because you're actually revolving through these two parts of the Vesica Pisces and the infinity symbol, and you're just kind of going through this loop. Once you realize that beyond the darkness and beyond the light, you are the center of the hurricane. So when you look at the center of the hurricane, it is stillness. And once you become still and kind of realize both sides and acknowledge them, but at the same time you're not being pushed, or you're not being pulled from any sides, and you maintain your center, that's where the magic happens, and that's where you basically can change things, because you tap into your infinite self, your divine self, and you tap into the timeless state of your, and you tap in to see even what is happening beyond this dimension. You go you go beyond the 144th dimension that exists in this reality. You tap into the divine cosmos, and you fully embrace yourself, and that's something you got to consciously. It's kind of like surrender, because when you surrender, you're either surrendering to the light, you're surrendering to the other side, which is really negative, or there's a third wave of surrendering to that divine essence, which is the highest. In this reality, it's the highest level form, because that's your essence, your heart. The challenge for all of us is to remember our divinity beyond the dilemma of this light and dark that is happening currently between two different forces. And there's actually currently wars are happening in certain areas of the planet, and some, as Corey Good was saying, in the even in the inner earth there are wars happening, there are intergalactic wars that are happening. So there's this whole cycle of, they're both kind of being pulled and pushed. So the main education that comes in is to actually educate both sides, because they're both divine, to realize their essence, come back to themselves, realize that they can balance that within in themselves, and come to the central point, which is the true peace that they can have within themselves. So that when that happens, then what happens is that there's going to be a whale. So right now the whales are interconnected, because in a previous video I said this reality is the only reality through fractalization, which has allowed the two sides to intermingle. does create the challenge of life and the growth. And when you look at the plant and the Fibonacci sequence, when you add 1 plus 1, it becomes 2. Then 2 plus 1 becomes 3, and goes to the next steps. 3 plus 2 becomes 5, and you just add the numbers. It becomes a shape or a human body or an animal or a being or multidimensional being. So there's so many different shapes and forms in this universe, and all of them have some kind of an ego. All of us have an ego. Like even I have an ego. Everybody of us have an ego. And if you didn't have an ego, we didn't have a body. So our ego is directly connected to our form, whatever form you have in this lifetime or in previous lifetime. We had so many different lifetimes, and we take different bodies, different spacesuits, and all these bodies, which we call ego, are I would say it has a form, so it kind of identify you as a separate being compared to a different being. So when, for example, Kuali is here, or Alper is here, or Julian, his name is Alper, my name is Ali, and that name is Kwa. So we have different experiences and we have different realities, and we try to come here to kind of find this common ground. We all have this common ground, and that common ground is bypassing both sides, and the both polarities that we're experiencing go within ourselves and realizing our true divine self. And that's the only time that we can experience bliss, peace, and a state of wholeness, even without the illusion of what a lot of people call twin flames or soulmates or stuff like that. It's independent of time, space, dimension, and independent of anything else. So you can experience that fully, and you can become a self-realized, self-illuminated person in an instant. It doesn't take years and years and years compared to what a lot of people think it's going to take. And a lot of people, okay, if they say if I'm illuminated and if I'm enlightened, then I should have supernatural abilities. But the thing is that even the supernatural abilities is like it's a skill that can be learned and can be cultivated, and that takes time and space. So that is bound to the structure and the limitations of this reality. So people who do yogic flying, or people who can time travel or go back and forth, is a skill that, or there are some people that materialize things out of the air with their consciousness, with their mind. There are some discourses in that will make your material, and so all of these skills can be learned, but it's like anything else. It's not enlightenment. So if somebody has those powers, they are not necessarily enlightened. It's really simple, basically. As long as you are going beyond your dual nature and you realize your own divinity at the infinite, time, space, which is now, and it's the circular time, then you are fully realized, and you can tap into and help the planet and help this cosmos to go through this. The whole thing is shifting into unity first, because you got to bring both things, and you got to kind of separate the two circles. When you look at the Vesica Pyre together right now, there's intermingling, and there's going to be a time where there's going to be separation. In the law of the harvest, if you read it, harvest means basically a separation of shaft and seed, or the light and dark. So that's what the law of one talks about. And there's going to be a time where the two realities, they're going to shift and separate, so that they can go live kind of interdependently and be at peace, and that's what we are trying to do. We want to be at peace every moment. Like I said, I want to have peace right now. I don't want to worry about all these things that are outside me. And all of us, even me, have worries during the day. When you go outside in traffic or whatever, we all have this kind of worries, and those worries actually kind of make our consciousness to come out of our divinity and actually shift our consciousness into something that is really even doesn't matter. It's so small that doesn't matter, but it kind of, through the law of, because we're interconnected and we are interacting with it, it pulls our consciousness and we think that's a reality. Like if you have a kid and that kid is playing video games, let's say, if you let that kid play that video game for a long time, that video game becomes his or her reality. And what happens, that person becomes lost in this video game and forgets that he's living in a different reality. So that's what you're experiencing. We are playing this game. It's kind of like a video game where we are experiencing the 3D dimension and also like higher dimension with our consciousness. But because we're fully entangled within this matrix, we feel that we are kind of so entangled that there's no way out of it. So if we were stripped down of everything, like even our clothes, our houses, and everything, and we had nothing in this world, you don't need anything. You just need your own consciousness, and you need this physical body. And some people even don't need this physical body. So it's kind of that's the thing. So we don't need anything. We are immortal beings. All of you that are watching this, you're immortal, you're divine, and we are playing this game. So once you realize that you're playing this game in this life, things becomes more fun, and you can decide, you can choose to play and also make things more playful. And so when children play, they play, and when we become adult, we become kind of anal or analytical or whatever you want to call it. We become very stubborn and we say, okay, this is it, and we become very structured. So once you realize that you can transcend both, and you can at the same time, you realize that you're playing this game, you're not entangled, you're free, you're immortal, you're a divine being, you began to have fun and make jokes and kind of laugh at things that we do. And as we become, we can joke about this, and we can have fun about this. And life becomes easier because our consciousness becomes more playful, And I encourage you to don't look at this life too seriously. Look at it as something transient, no matter what is happening out there, and people are telling things and all that. Be playful, be joyful, be the immortal being that you are. Be soulful, and be the light of the world, because once you realize that power, you can actually disengage from this dilemma of this duality that is happening. You realize your power, and other people that come into your sphere, they actually remember who they are, and you can actually empower other people by this change that you're making right now. So once you make this change, it's kind of like it's contagious. When you laugh or somebody laughs, it's contagious. When somebody's laughing their ass off, you begin to laugh too, and other people laugh, and it's just contagious. So the key is what you can do with your consciousness at this stage. You can have fun with it, and you can use your consciousness to create a shift in other people without even them knowing that you're doing it. But you're actually, with your consciousness, you can change other people's consciousness to realize who they are, to actually take them, help them to become self-realized as realizing their divinity, and thus we can have a joyful experience while we are here, and things becomes much more easier and much more better, and life becomes much better if everybody remembers who they are. And I'm talking both sides. I'm talking both the control freaks that have through their galactic experience, they realize that they got to control everything, and also those that are on the other side are not control freaks. They want freedom and all that, but they are trying to actually fight because they feel disempowered. They actually giving energy to the other side, saying, okay, I need to fight to get my freedom back. They don't realize that they already have the freedom right now where you're sitting right now. So right now, right here, where you're sitting, you have a full power of your being, your divinity, your immortality. You have everything right now present. So there is no lack. There is just abundance. And just with your knowingness, with your consciousness, you can change anything in this world. You can move mountains. You can do anything you want. And I'm talking about mountains as obstacles. So if you're experiencing any obstacles with your consciousness, so you can move them from yourself, and you can step into your power, into your divinity, into your blueprint, and walk the path that is basically your highest. I would say you have a choice when you look at parallel timelines and parallel realities. At any time, you have a choice. I can at this time pick up this pen and put it on the table. So I had a choice. So you can choose to walk into a timeline in which it is optimal for you, so it can fulfill you to it can fully fulfill you, and it can brings you all the joy and all the happiness and everything that you want, and you can experience that other side of the circle if you're on this side of a circle. So you can experience all of that right now, not tomorrow, not if I had $1 million, not if this changes, or not if that changes. Right now, with anything that is around you and surrounding you, you can experience it. And once you experience that energy, that freedom, that divinity within yourself, it's going to change your energy. It's going to change your vibration. It's going to change your cellular vibration, because your consciousness powers your body. It powers your consciousness. So what is happening when we have an illness, your external body is not fully realizing its divinity, so it gives you illness and puts you through different life lessons and hardships and everything. So you can it gives you a wake-up call telling you, okay, this loop, this repetitive thing that you're doing is not it's not bringing you to your highest purpose or highest value. As Dr. DeMartini says, he talks about highest value. Every one of us has highest value. So once you realize that, right now you can shift. And once you make a shift within yourself, you shift your cellular structure, you create a new vibration. And there are some people, Alper knows Merkaba, the light body structure. Once that happens, you turn on your Merkaba, and you can also actually create you can create external Merkabas around your body. You can create this a full 144,000 frequency, which is a frequency of light. You can create it around the body, around your body, and you can activate other people like that. So with your consciousness, you can activate other people's consciousness. So as I'm sitting here and you're listening, once you remember, you're going to reactivate your full Merkaba body, which is not just one-sided Merkaba. It's what Nassim Haramein showed in a picture, which is like it has many Merkabas, and it's like 144. It's a structure of light, and it's a icasa dodecahedron. That's that structure. So you can create an icasa dodecahedron around your structure, around your body, and once you're in that sphere, nothing can harm you, and you will become a sovereign being. And basically, you call your shots. You choose. You're not a victim, and you are what people call you become a lion. You are no longer a little mouse. You're a lion. You lead your life. You take control of the things you need to in a good way. Your life, you have full authenticity, and you have everything you want just right now without even physically having it. But once you transform your frequency, what happens is that through the law of resonance, you connect with the things you need externally and to the people that you need, and you bring a collapse to time-space dimension, and you basically connect everything to yourself, and physically you can materialize that, because there's a bit of a delay here, because when you change consciousness, has a really high speed, so it's kind of rotates at a really high speed. But in this reality, it takes time. Like when you look at the structure, you know, a lamp, a tree, whatever, these are physical structure. The physical structure is also light structure, but the vibration is so slowed down that it looks physical, like your body, you know. So your body is made up of electrons, protons, neutrons, and, you know, quanti and so forth. And all these particles that are there, they're actually fluid. Your body is currently a fluid, but it's a fluid that is kind of slow. And also the structure of time is fluid and circular. So the key is to basically realize their fluidity, and you realize your divinity, and it doesn't matter. Everything in this universe is divine, and you know the prime being, whether they call it darkness or lightness or all that, it doesn't look, it feeds everybody. When you look at the sun, for example, which is all giving, it feeds the poor, it feeds the rich, it feeds everybody, even the criminals or whatever, because it knows that everything is divine and everything has a purpose. And as we are playing this game, which we played it for so long that we kind of exhausted all possibilities, it is time for us to go back and rest, because we have been playing hard and all of us are tired. Both sides are pretty much tired now. And so you become this eye of the hurricane, and from that eye of the hurricane you can bring balance to yourself, and everything can neutralize in a really beautiful way. And kind of, I don't want to ramble too long. I want to give things in a really concise manner, but I would like to thank everybody who is watching right now: Tinra, Julian, Alper, Kua, Louise, Mariola. It's great to connect to all of you in this divine, timeless space, and connect my divinity to your divinity, realizing that we are one in essence, and we are experiencing this ego self for a bit. So my name is like different than yours and all that. So yeah, thank you for being here, Mariola. You're reminds me of a Star Trek Star Trek crew. You might be traveling interdimensionally somewhere. Yeah, we are all star beings, we're all stardust, and we are consciousness experiencing this reality. And we're gonna, you know, once we realize our divinity, we're gonna become more playful, more joyful, and also bring more joy to our neighbors, the people that we interact, our co-workers, and the things that we deal every day that frustrate us. You can bring your light, you can bring your joy, and you become the source of joy. We always look for the source of joy outside of ourselves. We are looking for somebody gives me this, or somebody gives me happiness. I'm waiting for somebody to give me happiness. But you become the source of joy. You become the source of happiness for other people. And if everybody learns that, to become a source of happiness for other people, imagine what we can do with that amount of knowingness and consciousness, and everything will become much more of a smooth sailing for all of us. And I'm not excluding dark or light. Everybody's going to benefit. So the reason I'm here is that, you know, my purpose as a divine being, my divine purpose is to basically remind you of your divinity, so that you realize that you have the power. So together we can change this, and we can, all of us can have peace, all of us can reunite, and all of us can really make this shift in a really harmonious way. You know, when Corey Good was in, there was an eclipse meditation in Mount Shasta, and there was this group meditation right where eclipse was happening, and it said it actually can create a positive timeline. So and a lot of people gathered and they meditated, and that created a positive timeline. It really helped that process. But realize that unless we go bypass our own duality within ourselves, we really can't have bliss. And once you realize, beyond all these ups and downs and these regular 3D life that we are experiencing, you find the magic within yourself through your own divinity, and you become the light of the world. You become the, giver of and you help other people, turn them on. It's like once you activate your light body like that, you can activate other people's light body like that, and it benefits everybody. Why not benefit everybody? Why not? Everybody wins. It's like there's no need to suffer. There's no need to create wars. There's no need to go through destructions of the world that we were kind of headed to. It is our conscious choice that we want to experience life, and even the scriptures that are written can be overwritten with our consciousness. That's the key, because scriptures are written on dead trees, which when they cut the trees, they made papers. They put these statements there, which was kind of a prophecy of what was supposed to be happening in the future. And when David Wilcock talked about these papers, they are designed by sacred geometry. It's like when you put a statement on a paper, or even writing a statement on a paper is very powerful. Like when you put your goals on a paper, you normally actually achieve them. And the reason is that when you make a statement on a paper, the geometry of paper is that the length and the width of it is it creates a resonance. Like when you look at in ancient Egypt, they called the sacred cubit, and they built the pyramids based on the sacred cubit. And whatever, it's like a resonance. So if, let's say, this is the sacred cubit, it resonates at a frequency of light. So whatever material you make within the geometry and this length will resonate at that frequency of light. Same with the papers. When I bring it back to papers, that resonates with a certain frequency. So all the laws that are written, and when you put things in writing and people sign it, it becomes binding. Why? Because it's a technology that the dual part of the dark side of us created to be able to control, and because there are control freaks, to control the populace. So having said that, you can use the same technology, and the highest technology is the living consciousness. So the most, even more powerful than writing things on paper, is using your own consciousness, bringing yourself into full alignment with your true divinity. And from there, whatever you command and whatever you wish, and I'm not even going to use those words, because wish is something in the future, and command is it's not in harmony, because you're trying to take over something. Whatever is supposed to happen in this divine moment, that is the best thing that can happen at this time for you and for the rest of the divine beings that are here at this time. It's going to happen in the best way. And basically, once you realize that, you can create the heaven within your own beingness, and you can project that heaven and goodness to your outside world, and you can activate other people's light bodies. And once you activate other people's light bodies, then once we reach the critical mass, if enough people connect, we can reactivate this. It's already won. We already passed it, because time is circular. So a lot of John Waller talks about it, says these ascended masters has gone to the other side, and they came back here, and the message that they give is that it's kind of, we're in this ride, in this journey. We already passed it, and we already ascended to the next level of existence, and we already won. But we are going just through this linear timeline, and we are experiencing. That's why you see synchronicity. So a lot of time you see 11, 11, 13, 13, or these numbers that happen and pop. So it means that when you see them, it's a reminder that you're actually following your path, and you're actually stepping into where you're supposed to be stepping. So everything is wonderful. So having said that, I love you all. And there are going to be 13 discourses as things become downloaded from my self or divine self that is interconnected to all of us. And I'm going to bring that and see how we can help each other to go through this. And remember, you're the light of the world. So wherever you go tomorrow, if you have to go meet with people or something, remember that you shine your light and remind people that become lighthearted. when in Egypt, they said the way to go to the next place is that when your heart is as light as a feather, and you become very light-hearted. It's a beautiful journey we're having. Become happy and become joyful and give other people that joy and the bliss that they need. And I wish you all a good night, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Okay, have a good one. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Bye, Mariella. Bye, Luis, Qua, Alper, Julian, all of you. Much love. Okay.